Wine Queen is back on Big Blend Radio today. Hilarie Larson, she's a travel and wine writer, and she is joining us to talk about all of her adventures on Whidbey Island in Washington State, and I mean all of them. We're going to get the lowdown. Apparently she went wine tasting. She ate local food. True local foodie adventures. Got some history as always, and got a nice natural escape out into the forest and water areas. She went to Deception Pass.
Wonder why they called it that.
Yeah, I want to know the scandal on that.
Yeah.
Everyone, her article on this beautiful destination will be featured in the June and July issue of Parks and Travel magazine, but you don't have to wait for that. You can go to nationalparktraveling.com now and just look in our Washington section, or just type in Whidbey Island, and you'll find it there. But also, along with traveling and writing about her travels and her wine tasting, Hilarie's also a wine educator. She's a sommelier and co-owner of North Winds Wine Consulting. You can also go to northwindswineconsulting.com. She's got a great blog there. And she's on Twitter at North Winds Wine. She's on Facebook under North Winds Wine. And guess what she's on Instagram as?
What?
North Winds Wine. See?
Really?
Yes. Welcome back, Hilarie. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. How are you guys doing? It sounds like you're having a
good.
wonderful day
Hey,
so
that
far.
song, Wind Through the Leaves. We should have
that.
Wind
Was beautiful.
Through the Grapevine. And actually a little touch of Pink Floyd in there. I was kind of thinking, like, that's kind of got a little Floydish vibes, Hey, there it is. But yeah, I thought that should go with your company name, North Winds Wine.
There you
North
go.
Winds. Ooh,
always.
Yeah. So when you were up in Whidbey Island, did you get some northern winds up there?
Yes, we did. And unfortunately, in some ways, unfortunately, there were some of those horrendous forest fires, that we had a lot of those out west this year. And I was there in September, and they were having some really bad fires up in Washington State. So the first day I arrived, it was a little hazy. The sunsets were phenomenal with all that smoke in the air, but it cleared up pretty quickly, thank goodness. And, some winds, especially on the ferries. But I love standing on the front of a ferry and just cruising through the islands, and that's my kind of wind.
Okay, so when you're on a ferry, I know that this is not in New York, but don't you want to sing "Let the River Run"? And get Carly Simon and what was it, Dolly Parton? What was that movie? 95.
Well, there was Funny Girl with Barbara Streisand, and she sang a song on a ferry, I do believe.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Okay. So now we could have a whole album of ferry music.
Ferry and wind singing repertoire.
I like this. Yeah, who needs sea shanties? Yeah, Ferry Cross the Mersey. Yeah.
That's really going back.
I know. Ferry Cross the Mersey. Okay. We'll get normal around here. So let's talk about Whidbey Island, because you've got quite a legend of, it's pretty interesting looking at the history of this, and I didn't realize about, you think about Oklahoma and the Homesteading Act and, people going across the country. There was that race. Everybody get on their horses and ride. There was like 10,000
Very
people.
Famous, yes.
Yeah. And now, you've got the Oregon Territory, which I've been learning about lately, and again, you guys coming back from Washington State have been really getting me into history about understanding the English and the Spanish up there, and the connection also with Vancouver. And it seems like Whidbey Island is one of those where everybody kind of on that island at some point, like the whole history of the Puget Sound, and then you've got a historical reserve and a natural reserve out there that honors it. And I'm taking the long way of saying this because I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Eebee or Ebbie? I don't want to get it wrong.
It's pronounced Eebee. I know it's hard to tell from the spelling, but they pronounce it Eebee.
Okay. Okay, because I now say Camano Island. I've got that right over the last few interviews. It's not Camano, it's Camano Island. So, but anyway, so Eebee. So, yeah, he found it, and so he was there in 1850s, but then it wasn't really developed until the 70s. So this is it's kind of like a newly developed island almost. Yeah,
Whidbey Island has been charted since Captain Vancouver and his crew on the HMS Discovery first sailed into the Puget Sound, what we now call Puget Sound, in northwest Washington in 1792. But it wasn't until, well, it was mostly like the other islands that we've discussed in that region. It was inhabited mostly by native cultures. I think it was a Skagit group that were mostly in Whidbey, because it was fantastic fishing grounds and foraging areas, and great place for them to prepare their food for winter storage and things like that. So it was mostly indigenous peoples, and then until 1850, and it was part of the Oregon Territory, and there was a thing called the Donation Land Claims Act, which was actually just like the homesteader rush that you were referring to, but it preceded it. So this was to get, and oddly enough, it was white American citizens to immigrate from the East Coast and settle these Western territories. And they were given, these vast tracts of land, and they could have the land for free. And married couples, would get 2 parcels. And it was the first time in the history of the United States where women were actually able to have land in their name, which I think is rather interesting. And that's what started it. And they had to settle their land and live on it, I think, for 4 years. And most people laid their claims around 1850, and they had to actually be on the land and start living on it and working it by 1851. And that's what really got things going. And then it just sort of hummed along, growing fruits and vegetables and wheat. And, I mean, you think the islands of the Pacific Northwest would just be all covered in evergreen trees.
Right.
Most people envision the Northwest as evergreen trees and lots of rain. But Whidbey is situated in what's called the rain shadow of the very large Olympic Peninsula. And so it doesn't get as much rain. It's a little more temperate climate. And it's also a very large island. It's 55 miles long and I think around 34 or 37 miles across at its widest point. So, people knew it was there. It was used mostly for agriculture and a few homesteads. But yeah, it wasn't until sort of the 1940s when they built the Air Force Base there that things really started to hum on Whidbey.
How interesting! That's good. The hum of the plane, the propeller. Yeah. Good one, Hilarie. Is it Friday wine time?
I didn't even know I was doing it. There you are.
I know, that was good. I caught that. I was like, she's got it.
I think that on the West Coast, when we're looking at world wars approaching, that there were a lot of places that were ignored, and then here comes the military.
And it's like, hey, this is a good spot.
Yeah, because you needed to protect the coastline there.
Yeah, and an island is
smart. And it was built primarily as a refueling stop in a place where planes could take on supplies and bombs before they headed out over the Pacific, or a lot of the planes there were used to go up to the Aleutian Islands off of Alaska and patrol that section.
This is neat. So Eby, he landed there, and he started did he? I mean, this is. You said this was on a 55-mile scenic byway of this island. So that's all of Whidbey, as part of the scenic byway.
All of Whidbey, the whole length of Whidbey has a main road and a main state highway. It's not a big highway like we think of here in California, but a nice, calm, peaceful highway. And it is part of the, I think it's the National Historic Byway or National Scenic Byway.
Cool.
I think it's the only island that has that accreditation to its road. And it goes right through ebeys-landing,
which is a preserve, a National Historic Reserve. And this is what's interesting about that. When we talk about national park units, we have 417 of them, and it's, we're still, going, hey, there's 59 national parks like Yosemite and Sequoias that we were just talking about on the show. But then there's all these other ones, that we have forts and we have seashores and, trails. And by the way, this year is the 50th anniversary of the Trails Act, the National Trails Act in this country. So going on a scenic byway, celebrate that by going on one because
there's lots of them in ebeys-landing, lots of beautiful walking trails.
I think these scenic byways and these historic trails are so important for the communities, in travels, that you go on these routes and road trips, and follow them and go to all these destinations, parks and their towns. But, with this Trails Act, that's really neat. But this is the reserve. And I don't, through the entire national park system, I don't remember seeing, reserve. That's a new one for me.
Yeah. Well, Ebeys-Landing was the very first National Historic Reserve. And it was created in 1978. So this year will be their 40th anniversary. So they've got all kinds of different things cooked up to celebrate that, which is kind of interesting. There's a list of those events on their website. And it was designed to protect and preserve this community. So it was not just, the natural aspect, it's also the human aspect, because it was virtually untouched. It stayed the same. I mean, when you go there, if you're going through approaching, say, from Langley, which is one of the larger towns, and you come through the forests, and then as you head to the eastern side of the island, it opens up into this beautiful prairie. It's completely unexpected, really. Just this beautiful open prairie. And that's where a lot of these people settled in the early 1850s with their small plots of land and grew their different crops. And that is part of the reserve, along with wooded areas and different buildings. There's a few historic buildings that date back to the 1850s that are still there. And it also is, as I say in my article, it's a living, breathing National Historic Reserve, because a lot of the land that is there is still owned by the ancestors of the people who settled it in the 1850s. So a lot of this is still in private hands. And some of it belongs to the National Park Service and the state and various other entities. But the majority of it is private, and people still have their farms and ranches and organic farms and, bee aviaries and all kinds of things, and fishing, and there are towns. And so all of this works together as this living, breathing historic reserve. It's fascinating.
That is so cool. Point Reyes National Seashore is kind of like that, too. They still have some of the old dairy farms. And it changes, though, because after, a certain part of the lease, not next, always a lease, but some of the companies do actually slowly move out, depending on the age and if they're still farming there. So when you're at a seashore, you'll be driving around, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of a dairy farm. And the cows are California happy cows walking around, chewing on grass, and then you go around the corner and you see tule elk, and you're like, what? And then you'll see an elephant seal. You're like, how does this all work? But it does. Everybody, it's so cool to have that balance. And so there are some parks like that, and when you see that history be part of it, I think that's what, it's that integrity of place, that sense of place we're always talking about on the show, because that's the reason for travel, is to see something unique
definitely.
To its heritage and its natural state, too. So this sounds so beautiful and peaceful. Is it quiet?
Oh, it is. It's very quiet. It's very peaceful. I really didn't want to leave. It was heavenly. It was just very relaxing, and you're only, about 30, I think it's not even 30 miles from Seattle. It's really close to, you fly into SeaTac Airport, you get on the SeaTac shuttle bus and hop on the ferry, and you're on Whidbey in less than an hour and a half. It's easy to get to, but you really do feel like you're an entire world away. And it's just a completely different pace of life, and I don't know, it was wonderful. I can't wait to go back, really.
Are you going for the conference this year?
I was hoping to go for the conference, but unfortunately it doesn't fit into my schedule. But I may just sneak up there with my husband and have a little vacation one of these days.
Cool.
That sounds like a good idea.
Take me. All these stories that you've come back, you and Linda Kassam as well, talking about this area, and it's just like, I know that the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association is having their conference. I believe it's off the top of my head May 6th through 8th. If you're a travel writer,
I believe that is correct. Yes,
I think it's in my head. Hey, I'm not bad for a blonde. Anyway, no, go to ifwtwa.org if you're a travel writer and check it out. But looking at all the photos and hearing all the stories and everyone's adventures, from zip lining to breweries to wineries. The food just seems like that whole region that people really have this authentic lifestyle where it's about really understanding that whatever they put into the environment is going to come right back to them. And it's like this pristine way of living with nature and preserving history and living the history, actually being part of the island's ecosystem.
Oh, most definitely. And the people you meet who have these farms and restaurants and wineries and so on, so many of them are locals. And they may have gone away at some point, but they're just drawn back, and they're so, I think, because they can't find that type of life anywhere else but these islands. And then there are people that go there just for some other reason, go to visit friends or go on vacation, and they're just drawn back. It's like the island captures them and won't let them go. It's a wonderful mix. But you're right, they're all really dedicated to keeping things as much as, the same way as they have been. Not that they want to blot out any modernity, and that definitely they do appreciate the modern world, but they want to keep that sense of place, that sense of history, that sense of community, and just that link that they have to their land and to the sea and to this way of life. And it's really, really lovely.
I want to go.
It sounds like it should be a TV series.
I know Nancy wants a TV series out there so bad.
Yeah.
She does. I think it would be really.
It'd be interesting.
I want to do that because you've got all the farmers too.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing. So I was looking at, so you go out here, have this nature experience, with beautiful views, and then at the same time you've got all these farms going on, but you've got a state park too. I wanted to touch on that real quick. You have the Deception Pass. So what is Deception Pass? I mean, this number one looks so beautiful.
It is. It's
that bridge is iconic.
Gorgeous, yeah. I mean, most people know Deception Pass for the famous bridge that was built in the 1930s, and by the CCC. We were talking about last time. I think we were talking about Orcas Island and Moran State Park. So, that was done by the Civilian Conservation Corps, and it's this incredibly high bridge that goes over this pass between the northern tip of Whidbey Island and neighboring Fidalgo Island. And it's called Deception Pass, if I recall correctly, because for people who were exploring the area on the early ships, it looked as if this was a pass, a route to approach, to get from the outer islands towards the mainland. But it really is deceptive because it has these incredible undercurrents and whirlpools. Oh. And I think it was a deceptive pass. It wasn't a good pass for their ships. Nowadays, a lot of people who go kayaking love it because of the challenge of those whirlpools. And that's a very popular activity up there.
Oh, how cool.
Lisa, you'd be good at it because you go in circles anyway.
But I do that anyhow. I mean, anybody knows.
Spin round. Me,
I do that. And I'm good at swirling wine.
Well, that's much more important.
That's important. That is important. But how neat.
That's a more useful life skill.
Now, there's camping there because Nancy and I are thinking of doing like I don't know, but there's something going on with something brewing with Nancy and Lisa and the idea of an RV. So I'm just saying. So there's camps. You never know. I don't know. We may have to go like on one of those rent a Airstream or something. I don't know, but there's this kind of thing brewing with us about.
We're getting itchy feet.
We got itchy feet, and it's like
I know you've been in one place so long this time.
Yeah. Well, it's about to change.
Not right.
But it's gonna. But I think we're just thinking how cool it would be to just traipse around and I don't know. I'm looking at campgrounds now because I'd like to wake up and look out and I'd like to see an orca with my morning coffee.
Thank you very much.
I'm just feeling like camping is necessary right now. So that's a cool thing for people out there.
Well, there you go. I'm pretty sure I saw on the Whidbey Island website that they have a list of campgrounds and campsites and of course the state parks and the other parks in the islands, they have camping as well. RVs, though, I'm not sure, but the website.
I don't know if you can do that on a ferry. That would be interesting. Can you take an RV on a? They took a school bus on the ferry on In Pursuit of Happiness. That documentary. They took They went to Alaska on a ferry. No.
I think it depends on the size of the ferry and the size of your RV.
Well, I don't know, because now we're also talking about Lisa trying to drive something like that, so that's a whole other deal. But
that's a comedy series.
I know that would be that's a whole thing. But now you stayed at some really beautiful places out there. I mean, looking at your photos, everywhere seems to have this sense of place. Feel like you're at the water, but the gardens.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I want to go just to sit in their gardens, and I'd like to have a spot of tea with it too.
Yeah. Beautiful gardens, terrific landscaping. When you go into towns like Langley and Coupeville, there's beautiful hanging baskets, and it's gorgeous. It's beautiful and wonderful trees, and it's just a real combination of nature and these charming towns with their own little histories.
Do you feel like you're in a different
while
country?
away a day and poke around and go, ooh, what's down that little alley and what's around that corner? And you always
like
find
that.
something.
See, it kind of looks European, and so I feel like did you feel like you were in a different country?
You do almost, and the people who live on the islands do think of themselves as islanders rather than mainland folk.
Flat feet people.
Yeah, going to the mainland. Like when we lived in Julian up in the mountains, they'd go, okay, we're going to go down the hill or up the hill. It's like everything, and if as soon as you get to a desert, now we're rats. So there we go. We're just rats. And then chew on saguaro cactus.
I did stay in some wonderful accommodation on that trip. It was, we were very spoiled.
Yeah. So when you were on Whidbey, I was just looking at some of the places you stayed, like the Coachman Inn, and so this is like a really cool, like a motor inn, and I love to find motor inns because they're going away. So you must experience this while you can, people.
Oh, definitely, because it reminded me a lot of my childhood and my youth and the family road trips we would take.
Yeah.
And these were the kinds of accommodation that we would usually stay in. And it's one of those beautiful, I think it was built around the mid-1970s. And again, it's got that fabulous landscaping with the evergreens and the rhododendrons, and it's beautiful. And it's all stretched out, and so it takes up a lot of space. So you don't feel like you're closed in like you do in some more modern motels. The rooms are really big and comfortable, and they have everything you need. And you go back to the lobby in the morning, get your breakfast, and it's wonderful. And it's in the town of Oak Harbor, which is almost in the center, near the center of the island. So it makes if you're driving or you're renting a car, there's a car rental place actually not far from the hotel. So if you're going to be traveling around by car, it's a great middle of the island place to stay, and then you can just radiate out on day trips.
And this is also part of the military history. It was in Oak Harbor. So
it
there's
is.
that. Yeah.
It is. And yes, that's where the Whidbey Island Naval Air Station is.
If there's any kind of military port or station, I will find it when I get lost. I do. I always end up on a base somewhere.
Somehow.
And I'm like, hello, officer. Soldier.
Well, you'd be in heaven in Oak Harbor. And then
I do very well.
There's a wonderful little museum there that's all run by volunteers, and it's all about what was called the PBY, which was the Patrol Bomber Consolidated Aircraft Corporation, and they were these amphibious planes that they used during the war. Mostly, again, up in the Aleutians. And the museum's just fascinating. They have an outdoor area and then an indoor museum with all these interactive exhibits. And it really helps you learn and understand about the whole history of the Naval Air Station and Whidbey's role during the Second World War and continuing on as well. And then they also have the old part of town. And it's called Pioneer Way is the main street, and it's got lots of great shops and galleries and restaurants and places to have a nice coffee, because you have to drink lots of coffee while you're there. It's just part of the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Just I don't want to talk about coffee because apparently it's not just Seattle, and it brewed out on the islands. Uh-oh. Can you tell this is not a wine day, but it is later? We're moving towards it. But what I was interested in is the oak trees there because I've never heard of them. The Gary oak trees, and so they're like the only native oaks there.
Yeah, I had never heard of them either, which is kind of strange because I grew up in Vancouver. But yeah, they're the only oak tree that's native to British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, and I think parts of Idaho.
Wow.
And they're absolutely gorgeous. And the town of Oak Harbor is named after these trees. And they were named after a fellow who was a bigwig in the Hudson's Bay Company, I think it was, whose last name was Gary. And so they named the trees after him.
His name was Gary.
I know, yeah. Gary. No, we know someone who they're just not called Gary. Gary. And so, sorry, now you got us in that mode. I had to think. I couldn't help it. But, okay, so when you were out there, and part of your article says that on a clear day you can see the Olympic and Cascade Mountain ranges. I mean, that is cool. Is that? You're on an island. You see these mountains. You've got oak trees. You've got orcas. You've got boats, wooden boats. You can go kayaking. You've got the other thing, too, about Deception Pass, that state park. I have to mention, you've got a gazebo photo for our friend in there.
I do? Oh, I didn't even know I had a gazebo.
I know. I can't stop
okay, is that counted as a gazebo, the picnic shelter?
Yeah, that's counted.
Okay.
Gazebo.
Well, there you are.
Yeah, he's good. I'm going to have to give him a heads up because we have a friend, Jamostic, who's like a gazebo dude. And now all I can see is he has a blog dedicated to gazebos. Well, when he cycled the perimeter of the country, and all of a sudden he started seeing gazebos, especially back east, and got into the fact that there's just an important part of American culture of people sitting out of the sun and be able to be outdoors, have food, or maybe a band is playing in a gazebo, and a lot of them are going away, being turned into different kind of things, but there's people that are into rest stop areas on highways because they used to be really artistic. And there's a guy writing a book just on that, so it's pretty cool. But the gazebo thing, what I liked is it was the office or the gazebo or the shelter, but the roof had ferns growing. It had its own rooftop garden.
Yes, that was down on the beach under Deception Pass. So you walk down through these beautiful old-growth forests and with all the moss-covered trees and the ferns, and then you get down to the beach, and that's where this picnic area was with the gazebo. And, yeah, it's one of those really classic CCC structures, with the local logs, and, yeah, it's a classic.
We have one of those here in Saguaro Park. Like that.
I'm sure you do. I think you find them in most of the parks where the Civilian Conservation Corps did the construction, don't you?
We find a lot of those out in the desert because we need you need it out for the rain out in the Pacific Northwest, and over here we need it because of the sun because it gets brutal, But so let's go to the coffee thing because that was a big deal over here. So this was in Coupeville. So this was near, it's near, everything's near each other, right? So Coupeville is like that little town, and he says it's got Victoria-era architecture, so that's really cool, too.
Coupeville is charming, and Coupeville is actually located inside the boundaries of ebeys-landing National Historic Reserve, and it's on a cove, a beautiful cove called Penn Cove. And a lot of people might go, where have I heard that Penn Cove? Well, it's very famous now because it's the home to Penn Cove mussels, which are it's a famous shellfish farm that exports its beautiful mussels all over the place. But it was named after an admiral, was he an admiral? No, sea captain named Coupeville, who was the first one to really settle and start up this town. He bought some land and started this little town of Coupeville. And, most of the buildings date to sort of the 1850s, 1860s, 1870s. And its biggest claim to fame, and everywhere you go in Coupeville, you'll be reminded that it was the town where they shot the movie Practical Magic with Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock.
maybe. Beautiful. That's a beautiful. That's. I mean, it's such a beautiful. I always like watching that. Once going, where is that? I want to go there. Where is that? Now I know where it is, and it has the best soundtrack.
Yeah.
Because
and
Macy
I think
Gray
it was,
is on there.
The town in the movie was, if I remember correctly, was supposed to be in New England somewhere, but the area there, that town, that seafront in Coopville, is still retains so many of its old buildings, and it has that New England charm because most of the people who settled in there were New England seafaring people.
How
and so that's why it had that look to it that I guess the filmmakers were trying to capture.
I thought it was in Rhode Island or something, just off the. I didn't think it would be on that side like you're saying, because it did look New English, and it's not
movie magic.
Yeah, and Practical Magic, the soundtrack, it is super cool. And Macy Gray is not on that. Macy Gray is on the other one that I was thinking of that I can't remember the name on, but. I know. I love soundtracks because you always get like different things come in. But Practical Magic has like Nick Cave and it's got Stevie Nicks, and it's a good album. That's how I remember movies, is by music. But anyway, getting back to this place looks really, really charming. But you said so there's coffee there. It was started in the 60s over there.
Yeah. Well, everybody who thinks of Washington State. Again, you think of Seattle and the rain and coffee. I mean, it's Starbucks and Seattle's best, but it was actually the whole craze, the whole thing started in this little town of Coopville, because the fellow behind it, his name was Jim and Dave Stewart, these two fellows, and in 1969 they bought this little tiny building, little coffee shop on the main drag in Coopville, and they called it the Wet Whisker, which I don't know, I think they should have kept the name, but they changed in 1990 to Seattle's Best. And Seattle's Best went on to, be one of the forerunners of this whole gourmet coffee revolution.
Wow. And so here it is. So everybody thought it started in Seattle, but it started with Seattle's Best in Coopville, outside of Seattle, 30 minutes away. Everybody.
That's right. And when you walk down the street in Coopville, you'll see the little shop. It's now it's still a coffee and ice cream place. And there's an historic marker plaque. You'll find them all throughout the town, but you'll see one on this building telling the little story about the history of Seattle's Best coffee and the Wet Whisker.
Wow. That's amazing. That's really
I know, isn't it?
You've got a bakery too. You got a bakery right next to the coffee shop. Now that makes sense.
Of course.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Well planned.
I like that. Sourdough. And then so you said there's the oyster catcher for dinner, and but also Lavender Wind. So this is like a shop.
Yes. They have a lavender farm that's just on the edges of ebeys-landing, and they have a really charming store, and when you walk through the door, it's literally take your breath away. I thought I was back in Provence or something. It's this old house, and it's just filled with all these fabulous lavender products.
Really, I see that's at lavender fields. Now you're getting, prairies, and then you've got orchards. And going back to ebeys-landing, I did want to touch on the farms there, because this is really interesting. When you talk about pollen earlier, like bees and apiaries and things, but the pollen analysis, I want to know about this from the Ekholms.
I know.
They've got heritage fruit trees and animals and stuff. That's a really big deal to keep.
They do, and he's got these. What are they called? They're these big Scottish cattle. The longhorn Scottish cattle, and they're really
cool.
friendly.
They're
but
cool.
his main focus is on the bees and the honey, and that is the main thing that they have there. And it's just wonderful. What he does is his name is Bruce Ekholm. It's called Ekholm Farms, and their aviaries are inside ebeys-landing. And he is able to track. He sends samples of the honey, I think, somewhere to some university in Texas, and they analyze it, and they analyze the enzymes in the honey, and then they can tell and do pollen studies, and they can tell exactly what plants the bees visited and collected pollen from that turned into the honey.
Wow. That's going to be really fascinating
Yeah, it's this
on all levels.
Intense analysis, and it'll be different during different times of the year and different years. So it's almost like, wine in a way that every vintage is different.
It's like a closed ecosystem, too.
So we could go honey tasting.
Yeah, because when they say, this is wildflower honey, how do they know? Depending, and if you're doing, when you're not in that kind of closed ecosystem, it's really hard to do. I mean, you've got water around you, so how far is the bees going to hop over to the mainland kind of thing, unless they catch the ferry? Just saying. But it's something also to be able to tell what, if the bees are, picking up, or, from organic, vegetation, or are they picking up chemicals? And I know from the area you're covering, Whidbey Island and Camano and Coupeville and all these amazing places, how, organic and environmentally conscious these places are.
Yes.
And so to me, that's really the interesting thing. Like, if they did that study somewhere else, I bet you'd come back with, like, night and day.
A lot of genetically modified.
I know.
Stuff.
I'm just going like, this is going to be. I would geek out on stuff like that. I want to go there and hang out and look at the pollen thing and see that. There too.
And he puts the information on the label as well. So when you buy your honey, it tells you what plants contributed to the making of that honey.
Like today, I want orange blossom. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
interesting. Well, yeah,
but it's a mix. I mean, the honey we tasted, or one of the honeys we tasted, was quite recent, and that spring it had been quite cold, so the apple trees in their orchards hadn't blossomed at the same time as they usually do, so the bees had to go looking for other things. So they got pollen from things like mustard and prunus and clover and snowberries and roses, and absolutely wonderful and super fragrant. I mean, I'm addicted to that honey now.
I want to go. I know. And the other farm out there, you went and visited, because you're looking at, here's your cattle out there. So you had Three Sisters Farm, and it's neat because you can go and buy like grass-fed beef, like just fresh from the farm, like truly, true goodness. If you're not mean to have that, that's cool. That's cool.
It's called Three Sisters Farm, and it's a fabulous story. And again, this is where, you've got these generations after generations of people who've lived there, and, it's this husband and wife, Ron and Shelley Mazzell, and their 3 daughters. And all their daughters are volleyball players, and they all went off to college, but they didn't go off somewhere else or stay in the state where they went to college. They have all returned home, and they all run the family business. They've been, as they say, owners of the business since they were little tiny kids. So they are dedicating their lives, and now the eldest daughter has married and started a family, so there's a whole new generation that's going to grow up on that farm.
Wow,
that's cool.
And now, when you the dining there, I know that we've talked. Chef Natras has been on our show, which was awesome. Just talking about how the farm to table truly is. You said that, and I don't know why I thought it was bakery, but I went there. I saw sourdough, and I love sourdough. But apparently, Chef Tyler Hansen from the Oyster Catcher, he makes his own bread, but from his own wheat.
Isn't that cool?
That's super
cool. You can't get much. More part of the food chain than that. Yeah, he grows it, and he started making this sourdough bread because in the winter, business was really slow. So he started making the bread, and they would sell it at the farmer's market, and this is in Coupeville, where he has a restaurant called the Oyster Catcher. And it just became, the bread was so popular that now they have this bread club. So you can sign up online or go by the restaurant and sign up, and you can collect your fresh bread a couple of times a week.
Wow.
Nice.
And they also sell it. I saw it for sale. Three Sisters Farms also has they sell their grass-fed beef at the farmers market, but they also have a little shop, and they sell their things, but they also sell a lot of a whole huge selection of local artisanal foods. And lo and behold, what did I see but Oyster Catcher sourdough bread for sale on their counter.
See, there it is.
Yeah,
that's
so you keep
cool.
running into these same names and businesses as you traverse up and down the island and go to all these different places.
Man, I'm hungry now because like really good sourdough fresh baked
so
bread.
Good.
Oh my gosh, and like I can imagine the butter is not like some cubed stuff. It's like, here's real butter out there because they've got cattle.
I haven't had my lunch yet. You're being really cruel.
I know. It's like, but this is terrible because we're not done. We're not done because apparently you had French food too in Oak Harbor, Scott Fraser at the Fraser's Gourmet Hideaway. I mean, now you French cuisine out there, so you must have been happy there. Yeah.
Yeah,
nice
he's
wine?
from Vancouver.
Oh, see?
Yeah, Scott Fraser, and he built the restaurant himself, which is rather unusual. So everything in it is exactly the way he wanted it, which for a chef is probably the idea of heaven, I would think.
Wow.
And he serves a cuisine it's French inspired and Italian inspired, and it's just good, beautiful food. It's a really relaxed atmosphere. It kind of looks a little like fine dining, but it's island casual. And he cooks in this wonderful open kitchen, and it's, I get so tired of hearing and reading about all these chefs that just scream and yell orders and throw things, and his kitchen's the exact opposite. It's very calm, and it just flows, and I ordered the duck breast, and he showed me some little tips and tricks about how to cook a really perfect duck breast, and it was it was a really, really memorable meal.
And how did you enjoy when you were in Langley? How did you enjoy hanging out at Orchard Kitchen with Chef Natras with Vincent?
Oh my
what was that
goodness!
Like?
Oh, it was fabulous too. I just love when you get there, and in order to get to the restaurant, you walk through the farm, and there's these colorful chickens and some goats and the farm buildings, and of course all the fields and fields of fresh produce. And being there in September, it was, not as bountiful as it would have been there had I ventured out in, say, probably July or something. But and then this cozy little restaurant with the long tables. They serve all the meals family style, and it's a set menu that changes every week. And we sat at the counter, so we were able to watch them prep everything, and it was magic.
How cool,
and the
man!
food, all this local produce, and our first course was these. It was sliced golden and red beets, just sliced paper thin with local blue cheese, and goodness, it was just heavenly.
Listen, I'm getting hungry, okay?
thirsty.
I know. This is not good. But and then, really, my mouth is watering. I have to think about.
And his wife, who we met in Napa, if I remember, she's the sommelier there, and her wine pairings were just phenomenal.
See. Yeah, you need to go back there and just remember to take us on a suitcase and throw us on the ferry, and we'll be happy when we get over there. I want to go. So now Primo Bistro, that was another place where you could enjoy wine, and that seemed to be another farm's table, but they did a lot of meats, right?
Yeah, they do, and that's another place. It's in Langley, and the chef there, his name is. I'm probably going to totally mispronounce his name, so if he listens to this show, I hope he'll forgive me. Seb Uranes, and he and his wife Jen, who has family on the island. That's how they ended up there, and they opened up this little restaurant called Prima Bistro, and he does cures his own charcuterie. He makes his own pickles. They do as much in-house as they possibly can, and it's upstairs in this little building right on the I think it's First Street, which runs parallel to the bay, and or to the Sound, and you can sit out on this wonderful deck and look out at the water and enjoy a great wine list and wonderful food, and it was hopping when I was there. Actually, they're so popular. They've been around for 11 years, I think it is, at Primo Bistro. And then there was a little, I think it was a Chinese restaurant or something a few doors down that closed. And so they reopened it as a total seafood place called the Saltwater Cafe. And it's now really popular. And it's strictly seafood. And they have this great big chalkboard at the end of the restaurant, and it lists all the seafood that they got in that day.
Wow.
And then you
so
can choose from that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
super
from boat
fresh.
to table. I like that.
Yeah.
Fresh,
just shy of
fresh,
Whidbey,
fresh.
I swear.
Wow. And then, okay, so you're talking about having, you know, that beautiful deck out there now. The inn at Langley where you stay too. I mean, apparently you can have your own private deck and look out to the water. Are you serious? Like I want my own private deck.
I'm completely serious. That talk about relaxing. I thought I was in another world. It's the inn at Langley is just a beautiful, beautiful. I say hotel, but it really feels more like a resort. It's that sort of driftwood kind of look, cedar wood, you know, sort of bleached by the wind and the salt and the sea air, and it's built as almost like a terrace on the side of this cliff, and it overlooks the boardwalk that runs along the beach. And all the rooms have these little decks, so you can sit out there, and it's very private, and have your cup of coffee or your glass of wine, and they even give you nice little blankets so you can take them and snuggle up at night and sit out there with your beverage of choice and just listen to the waves. And the room is beautiful.
I can't stand it. I want to go now. I want to go now. I want it. I really feel like a 2-year-old. I want it now. It just sounds so relaxing.
And even they have this, my room and I think all of the rooms, or most of them do, have these wonderful jacuzzi soaker tubs. And they have a window that looks out onto the water as well. So you can lay in your tub and look out at the sea.
What are you trying to do? This is like we need to go. Like that's
I know.
Like this is
would you rather stay there or in an RV?
See now you see that's it. Okay, that's it.
I know where I'd rather stay.
I know. I'm with you. The RV just went out the window. See, boom, done. No, but I think for a road trip it would be cool for like
a little bit bigger car in a tent, and then stay in nice places or tents.
I want my own private deck with a glass of wine, but I want the local wine, which apparently you got to experience. But, you know, this is what's interesting to me about the wine out in that area. Now, we've had wine from like Yakima Valley and more of the eastern parts of Washington that were just incredible, like heavy reds, more Vedres, and just really jammy, good wines. And then when we were in like the Oregon side and the coast going up, the coastal area, they were doing like a lot of fruit wines and things like that. But then you were saying they were doing Pinot Noirs out there. I wouldn't have thought like on an island that there would be Pinot Noirs, and I don't know, for some reason I thought it would be more fruit wines, you know, out that way.
Well, I was always under the impression for years, and I think most people were, that the wines on the western side of the Cascade Mountain Range in Washington State were not really made from a lot of fruit that was sourced from their own region, because it is a delineated wine growing area, or an AVA, but it's called the Puget Sound AVA. So it is recognized as a wine growing area, and it encompasses most of the northwest coast and the islands. But you think, oh, well, you know, there aren't a lot of varieties that they can really grow there. And for many, many years, the wineries that did exist on the islands would bring in fruit from the eastern side, from the Yakima valleys and the Columbia Valley and so on, and they'd make the wines at their wineries on the islands. But there are some varietals that they were growing, and we touched on a couple of them, I think, when we talked about San Juan Island. Mm-hmm. But so there's one white variety called Cigareb, and another called Madeleine Angevine. Excuse me. And they're both respected grape varietals. I mean, Madeleine Angevine comes originally from the Loire Valley in France, and they produce these really crisp and refreshing and fruit-driven white wines. And they're really dry, so they're absolutely perfect with all this local seafood and the Penn Cove mussels and the other shellfish that you get. But then I went to 2 wineries on Whidbey Island that both grow or both have locally sourced Pinot Noir. Whidbey Island Winery gets their their Pinot Noir from a vineyard at the very southern tip of the island. And then another winery we went to called the Spoiled Dog. Gotta love that name.
I love that.
And that's all they grow is Pinot Noir. And it was absolutely terrific. I was very impressed at the quality.
Huh.
It's very much, it's not, some people think of Pinot Noirs and they think of, say, California or some of the Oregon ones that are quite full-bodied, medium to full-bodied. These are more like a lot of the ones that you find in Burgundy in France. Some of them are a little, they're more sort of earthy and these beautiful raspberry and fruit aromas and very finessed.
Man. Okay, so this is just getting, worse and worse, Hilarie, in a good way. In a good way, I want to say.
Just don't end, do they?
I know. It's like this is like a magical place. I mean, it's just really one of those, like a magical destination. And I know everyone think about this like spring, summer. It's going to be beautiful out there too. Like everything's going to be, growing and all the veggies and everything. I want to go to the distillery though, because that's another cool thing to get. Like you've got spirits. You got spirits on the island.
Yeah, and Washington State. I think I read somewhere that it's the state that has the most distilleries. I mean, who knew? And this one is absolutely terrific, and they embrace their local attributes as well. They use a lot of locally sourced berries to flavor their liqueurs, and they distill their own whiskey and vodka and rye, and then they make these liqueurs as well. And they're absolutely terrific. Their Loganberry liqueur was really, really good. And they have these great cocktail ideas. They come up with some really creative things, like lemon. Cool. I think it was limoncello that they had made, and I think it was with the Loganberry. Oh, and it was so good.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Whidbey Island Distillery. I like this.
You might never get off the island.
Now, if it's a little chilly, you could take your liqueur and you could put it in your coffee. And the one other coffee roasters, is it Mukilteo? Coffee roasters. We've got more coffee out there. So you could be adding,
just
little
nip here and there.
A little nip to your coffee.
Yeah, you could go really local. You could take some of your whiskey from Whidbey Island Distillery and slip it into a cup of Mukilteo coffee.
Yeah. And have that with a sweet Mona chocolate.
Oh.
Sweet Mona chocolate. See, that's the way to close an evening, out on your private deck with a little blanket, your coffee with a little whiskey, and the chocolate.
Oh, now, okay.
Chocolate.
All right. So what time does the bus leave?
Yeah,
I
really.
know. Like, can the ferry just come pick us up on the mainland, like the big desert land? We need the ferry to come here. I don't know. Maybe we'll Amtrak up there. That's the thing. Okay, the RV's out. I want the private deck and the coffee, and I want the wine tasting. I want the whole thing. I want the entire experience. Thank you very much. So I want to give everyone the website. WhidbeyCaminoIslands.com is the website to go to. So you said 30 miles east of Seattle, so it's easy to get from the airport. And you've got ferries, and you could do the drive over Deception Pass Bridge.
Yeah, or there's also a ferry from Port Townsend, which is on the Olympic Peninsula. That goes right into near Fort Casey in the middle of the island. So you have 3 ways to get there.
That's cool. Very easy.
Yeah.
Now, everyone, you can look at Hilarie's photos and read her article. Go to nationalparktraveling.com. Just type in Whidbey Island. You'll find it. And if you go to the Washington section, look under the articles, you'll see Orcas Island, San Juan Islands, and that whole area is getting a lot of coverage. It's cool because people need to know about it because this is just special. This is just really special places that you're covering. And I hope you do get back up there. And I hope we do, too, because I'm hungry now and I'm very thirsty.
I know, but if I get back up there, will I ever want to go home? That's the problem.
I don't know.
It sounds like you might.
I know.
I
know. We may have to, you may need an RV. We're back to the RV thing again. I don't know. But, we do have some music for you today.
Oh, good.
And I think I may have played this for you before. It's called Summer Wine. And I was just thinking about this island, the wine, the Pinot Noir. And, getting out there and just enjoying island life. And I just thought, like, I feel like summer should be now. This is going to be in the June-July issue of Parks and Travel magazine, which is summer. So
done with the cold now.
And yeah, we want summer wine. And this is from our friend Shelley King. She is the very first woman of music in the state of Texas. Thank you very much. She rocks. She's the laureate of Texas, and she's based out of Austin, but she goes and plays with Amy Helm from Levon Helm, and she goes up and records in Woodstock at the Levon Helm studios and everything. She's very cool.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and she likes to travel too, so that's a cool thing. So we're going to play Summer Wine. It's off of her latest album called Fan Faves. You can go to ShelleyKing.com, and that's an EY for that, Shelley. And, seashells, islands, just anyway. I think we all need wine time early. But NorthwindsWineConsulting.com is where to keep up with Hilarie. Also, if you go to BlendRadioandTV.com, you'll see Hilarie in the expert department, and you can read her other articles that go all over the place. Where's your next destination? Is it going to be Whidbey?
It may very well might be. I'm not quite sure right now, but wherever it is, I will find some wine.
Okay, I know you will, because she is the wine queen, and we like to find all musicians with wine-themed songs, send them to us so we can play them for Hilarie on the shows. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy Friday.
Thank you. It was a pleasure as always, and happy Friday to you too.
Okay, here's some summer wine for you. Enjoy it. And I heard that the winemaker is really good on this, so here it is.
Okay.
Take care.
You too.
I've been thinking about getting away. Maybe I just need a little escape, away from all this busying around. Find a little time to come unwound. It's so easy to get caught up in this race, with so many dreams to chase. Then I hear that song on the radio, making me wanna go out in the sunshine, sip a little summer wine, slow dancing in the park, stay there till after dark. Sweet sound, soft and low, song on the radio. Maybe we could take a little drive out past the city to the countryside, holding hands and talking about love, away from all this push and shove. Take some time to look into your eyes, reconnect our disconnected lives. Remember how it used to be, when all that mattered was you and me. It's so easy to get caught up in this race, with so little time to waste. Then I hear that song on the radio, making me wanna go out in the sunshine, sip a little summer wine, slow dancing in the park, stay there till after dark. Sweet sound, soft and low, song on the radio. After all is said and done, you know you are my only one. Oh, darling, give your love to me. Then we'll hear our song on the radio, making us wanna go out in the sunshine, sip a little summer wine, slow dancing in the park, stay there till after dark. Sweet sound, song